What are they cooking this time? Macklemore released a diss track? But for real, this entire Drake-Kendrick beef has cast a huge shadow over the fight for Palestinian liberation. I'm not judging anyone. I know that this beef is one of the most wild beefs in music history. I've been invested, and I and many other people can focus on multiple things at once, but many people don't. And we need all eyes on Rafah, because Israel relies on stuff like this in the Met Gala so they can strategically conduct aggressive offensive operations while observers are distracted. The invasion of Rafah, which is a town located on the southern border of Gaza and is currently one of the most densely populated places on Earth, has begun, and the scene is already horrific. So shout out to Macklemore for making a diss track about the US government. He's an incredibly popular artist, has a huge platform, and he put everything that activists have been screaming into a song. Yeah, it's a little corny, that comes with the territory of political rap and his general vibe, but with that being said, it was pretty good. He historically raps about stuff that matters, so you know what, Mr. Macklemore? Mackle as much as you want. I want to eat that.
Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say we were free. Strange things that happen to you, stranger would it be?
Plans broadly start with disclosure and divestment. As of right now, students do not have access to where their money is going when they pay tuition fees to this university. So crucially, our first demand is full disclosure of financial investments.
Crucially about Israel, right?
Well, we want to know where all of the money is going. We think that that's key for students to know where their money is going, whether it's about Israel or not. But then, with this knowledge, we would like to pursue full divestment from two things. First, from all arms manufacturing companies. Whether it's the current genocide in Gaza or other armed conflict around the world, our university should not be investing in that. This is a situation where we should be learning and contributing to education and a safe community, not to international conflict. And secondly, we request and demand that the university divest from all holdings in any entities that sponsor or are complicit in Israeli occupation, apartheid, and the current genocide in Gaza. Additionally, we have boycott demands, key of which is the demand to stop banking with Barclays, which the university currently does. Barclays has been complicit in the architecture of Israeli apartheid, and so that's a key demand from the boycott, divestment, and sanctions global movement. And our last demand is that the university commits to a Palestinian-led rebuilding of the Gazan higher education sector.
Okay. So how much link up have you had with the movement in the United States and with other student protests in the UK?
Yeah, so crucially, I mean, the US movement set off a global chain of reaction, and we're so excited to be a part of that and thankful to the US encampments for what they began. We've had a lot of support from them in terms of logistics, general comradeship, giving us tips and tricks. But really, the UK movement has also learned a lot from them in terms of how our goals are so similar. Although the US and the UK have different contexts, the UK government is similarly complicit in Israeli war crimes, and so too are our institutions of higher education. So we learned a lot from them in terms of our demands, how to engage with our governments, and how to mobilize students. In the UK, we also have really collaborated with other universities. Oxford is so proud to be launching in tandem with Cambridge. This is the first time in social movement history that Oxford and Cambridge have launched a campaign on the same day.
Was the war on drugs ever really about drugs? Of course not. It was about waging war on black people and anyone against the Vietnam War. When Nixon was campaigning for president, he ran a campaign based on law and order, capitalizing on and dramatizing people's fear of drugs, fear of crime, and fear of foreigners. He encouraged Americans to be afraid of black people and anyone who was against the Vietnam War, and he used drugs to do it. In a 1994 interview, Nixon's former aide, John Ehrlichman, said, "By getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities and vilify them night after night on the evening news." Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. But America has since spent billions of dollars on these lies that have destroyed families across America for decades, especially black families. According to the ACLU, despite roughly equal rates of marijuana usage, black people are 3.73 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana than white people. Black and brown people are also more likely to be convicted, harshly sentenced, and therefore held back by a resulting criminal record. Today, marijuana is legal for medical and/or recreational purposes in 38 U.S. states, and somehow businesses in the industry are predominantly white-owned, while many black people continue to rot in prison for the exact same substance.
In Africa, we have this, but we prefer this. We have this, but we prefer this. We have this, but we prefer this. Finally, in Africa, we have this, but we prefer this.
Oh, man. What's wrong? I just lost my hyperfixation. Oh, well, I mean, you have other interests, right? You don't understand. The bus has left, and I have to wait for the next one. I don't know what that means. I do not find the interests. The interests find me. You're telling me you don't have a single thing you want to do in your free time. That TV show was my reason for getting out of bed in the morning. That's maybe a little dramatic. It was my method of self-regulation. It was my reward. It was my way of releasing emotions that I can't feel for myself, but I can feel for a fictional character. Oh, and was it the food you ate and the water you drank? Well, I did watch it with every meal. So, you know you're allowed to like things casually, right? Unfortunately, casual does not register on my emotions scale. Okay, well, you used to have a hyperfixation on a different show. Why don't you just go back to that? I exhausted that one of all its dopamine on the 7th rewatch. Okay, so how long until the next hyperfixation? The will of God is not for us mere mortals to know.
What is happening to Palestine is a disability justice issue. This is a photo of Israeli Defense Force soldiers posing in the rubble of Khan Yunis with canes that they took. Khan Yunis is a city in southern Gaza, and on January 24th, 2024, the IDF bombed a UN shelter there. This photo was taken after. Disabled people do not voluntarily separate from their mobility aids. The people who used these canes that are colorful, adjusted to their height, probably chosen for their style or a color that they loved. These people were either killed or forced to flee under the most dire circumstances imaginable. Because disabled people do not voluntarily separate from their mobility aids. Our mobility aids are an extension of ourselves. They represent freedom, independence, support. Any disabled person will tell you how violating and inappropriate it is to have somebody touch your cane or your wheelchair without your permission, to take control of a part of your body without asking. To have them taken away from us is cruel, and to see them used like this is haunting. Disabled people are already disproportionately impacted by disasters, whether natural or man-made. Evacuation plans are often inaccessible, and in emergencies it can be impossible to access electricity, medicine, sanitary supplies, and medical devices necessary for our survival. Over 30,000 Palestinians have been killed since October, and thousands more have become disabled. The bombing and destruction continues to make Gaza even more inaccessible, with each attack making it harder for disabled people to escape and survive. Will their mobility aids and medications be left behind to tell their stories? To be taken as prizes of war and posed with? We all deserve a future where we are still around to tell our stories, where we are not left behind. Disability justice tells us that none of us are free until all of us are free. Occupation is disabling, state violence is disabling. Palestine's freedom is a disability justice issue. Keep calling for a ceasefire, keep calling for a free Palestine, and in the meantime, if you want to support disabled Palestinians, you know where to find the resources.
Get ready with me while I talk about how we're damn near living in the real-life Hunger Games. Example 1 was yesterday. Everybody that was at the Met Gala, those bitches are living in the capital, and the rest of us, we're in the sorry-ass districts, girl. Usually, I love the Met Gala, and I tune in faithfully. I was excited this year, but at the same time, it just felt so wrong. Because while the rich and famous were on the Met Gala carpet, you know, doing what they do, showing off their outfits, not only were there thousands of people outside protesting, but once again, just like at the Oscars and the Super Bowl, when millions of people in America and in the West were tuned in to yet another pop culture event, the IDF launched another attack against the Palestinian people in Gaza. You heard it right. While y'all were tuned into the Met Gala, the IDF was going boom, boom. And I know a lot of other influencers are scared of posting about this because they think that they're gonna lose their brand deals and their sponsorships. But for me, bitch, my humanity is worth more than any brand deal I could ever get. And the IDF is literally still going boom, boom on the Palestinian people as I make this video. So yes, let's talk about it. So yeah, basically over 1.5 million people are stuck in Rafah, which is a small part of Gaza, which was the last safe spot in Gaza. They were told to go there. They were forced to go there. They were told that it would be safe. But what do you know? Just like everybody guessed, the IDF is now dropping boom booms in a small area densely packed with over 1.5 million people, half of which are children. And I know I said earlier in the video that this feels like the Hunger Games. That was just to capture y'all's attention so you would listen. But I actually think it's really stupid to compare something like this to the Hunger Games or dystopia without acknowledging the fact that this is real life. It feels dystopian because it is. The future is now. I know a lot of Americans ignore issues like this because they think that it doesn't affect them, but oh baby girl, it sure does affect you. There's another thing that is dystopian about all of this is that while the American people are suffering, the cost of living is still going up and wages aren't. A majority of American people can barely afford to live. Billions of our tax dollars are going towards funding these foreign wars that have nothing to do with we the people. Like, let's be honest, if you're watching this and you're American, yes, you, hi, I know there's probably a good chance that you're living paycheck to paycheck. Are you really okay with a portion of your money that's being taken out for taxes going to a foreign government to fund their war while you are over here having to budget just to keep food on your table? It's just so ridiculous. So ridiculous that this is our reality. And then they want to try to ban TikTok on top of it so that we can't communicate things like this anymore. Bitch, I'm over it. I'm over it. I guess what I want to say is don't let things like the Met Gala distract you from what's really going on. Yes, it's okay to enjoy these things. Yes, I know Zendaya's dress was very beautiful. Just don't allow yourself to be totally blinded. Please. And yeah, I will still be posting my normal content as well, but I will also not be staying silent. Silence is compliance. Thank you for watching.
Rafah was invaded during the Met Gala, and before you go, I can care about fashion and human rights at the same time. I'm begging you in this moment to think critically and not separate them, because Israel has a history of strategically staging their invasions and increasing their violence while under the distraction and cover of culturally significant events in the United States. Or have we forgotten about the massacre that happened during the Super Bowl? Just to make it a little more dystopian, the celebrities are dressed like Effie Trinket from the Capitol. And I hate that these distractions are being used to manufacture our complicity. I'm not shaming you if you care about the Met Gala, I'm asking you not to separate it from what's happening in Rafah. But this is the family I've been assigned to advocate for. This is Safa, her family of 7, including her daughter who had spinal corrective surgery and hasn't had a chance to rehabilitate while they've been on the run practically since this started. I know it feels really hopeless while the crossing to Egypt is blocked, but there's a really good chance that it will open up at some point in the future, at which point I'm praying that we will have raised enough for them to leave when they get the chance. Even $5 would mean the world if enough of us pitch in.
So it's been a minute since we've chatted, and I've been thinking about how to prove I'm better than you, okay? This one's a no-brainer. You like killing babies. Why do you have to frame everything in such an aggressively disingenuous way? Sorry, is there a more diplomatic way to say you like killing babies? It's disingenuous because I don't enjoy abortion. That's what we're talking about, right? Yeah. I'm not, like, giddy about abortion. It's not something I think is cool or fun. It's just a thing that I think happens and that I think should be legal and safe. Killing infants should be legal and safe. I'm not gonna debate with you about when a zygote becomes a human child. I think that there is plenty of evidence to suggest that culturally and societally, we don't really honor the personhood of someone until they are born. That's kind of the whole point of a birthday and a birth certificate. We have all these legal statements of personhood, and none of them begin at conception. But I know that's a dead-end argument and that neither one of us can prove anything to each other in any sort of empirical way with that. All I'll say is that the overwhelming majority of medical professionals in the world agree that abortion is an essential aspect of reproductive health care. Actually, abortion isn't health care because pregnancy isn't a disease, and a doctor said that, so suck it. And what would that doctor that you're quoting recommend I do if I broke my arm? Why? Well, a broken arm's not a disease, but I still feel like if I broke my arm, I would need some sort of medical attention. Oh, right. Right. That's a bad quote. It's a really bad quote, yeah. Pregnant people undoubtedly require reproductive health care, as health care is the treatment of all health-related issues, not just the treatment of diseases. And one of the realities of reproductive health care is that sometimes a termination of the pregnancy may be required to ensure the safety of the pregnant person. Just say woman or mother. I prefer to use language that includes trans men and non-binary folks. And by doing so, you exclude women, the people you supposedly care so much about. Actually, inclusive language is aimed at making sure no one is excluded, but we're getting off topic here. Look, I just think that killing is wrong in any context. I don't think that should be a controversial thing to say. It's not a controversial thing to say. The problem is that if your number one concern truly is the sanctity of life, then you should absolutely be pro-choice. More people are harmed and killed by abortion being illegal than by abortion being legal and safe. And look, regardless of whether you believe that abortion is morally or ethically wrong, it is. It's a matter of bodily autonomy. No one should want laws that strip us of our essential right to bodily autonomy. No one should be able to legally use our bodies without our consent, not even our children. Yeah, bodily autonomy is fine, but your autonomy ends when another life begins. No, not even then. I could be the perfect donor for somebody who needs a new kidney. We could have a situation where this person is definitely going to die if I don't donate my kidney to them. I should not be legally compelled to do it, even with another life on the line. I should not be legally forced to use my body to sustain theirs. You can call it immoral all you want, but you should not want to live in a society where the government has more control over your body than you do. There are so many other things I could bring up, so many other places this argument has gone time and time again. I could talk about sexual assault and how sometimes people, even children, are being made to carry pregnancies that were the result of non-consensual intercourse and how terrible that is. But the reality is, I shouldn't have to make a case for why people deserve bodily autonomy. You shouldn't have to be sexually assaulted or on the verge of death to be granted bodily autonomy. It should simply be a fundamental, irrevocable human right with no exceptions and no qualifications. Well, I still think you're awful. I'm fine with that.
Let's redesign some countries' flags. So let's start with Israel's flag. I don't know, I feel like it needs a bit of work. Little fact about Israel, do you know that so far they've killed over 30,000 Palestinian people? Israel are committing what many would call a genocide right now. You know, when I was in school and learning about the Nazis, I'd just sit and watch in horror thinking, how could anyone let something like that happen? I assumed in a world like now, with the internet and everything, propaganda would be harder to believe. There are countless families trying to flee Gaza right now in fear for their own lives, all because of Israel's indiscriminate killing of Palestinian citizens. I've left a link in my bio with the master list of Operation Olive Branch. It's essentially a spreadsheet with a huge collection of families who are trying to raise money to leave Gaza or for help. I know it's a difficult time financially for a lot of people, so I completely get if people can't help financially, but do me a favor and share this video, share the link. If you are able to, please, I urge you, send some money over to some families. How many more innocent lives are going to have to be lost before people actually start giving a shit? I know a concerning amount of creators who have chosen not to say anything purely to not risk any controversy. And all I have to say is, if you consider your own following more important than the lives of thousands and thousands of innocent people in Gaza, give your head a little wobble.